For a split second, and not only today, also a few days back, if you just looked at the scorecard for India's ODI game against South Africa, you would, for a split second, feel like you're back in 2016 because all you would see is back-to-back centuries from Virat Kohli. Unreal batting from him. His 84th century literally feels like 2016 Kohli is back, version 2.0. He is aggressive. He's hitting a six to get off the mark. What is going on? Incredible batting from Kohli. But apart from that, and apart from other great batting performances of Team India, an unfortunate loss as well, because South Africa came swinging. Really bad bowling as well from Team India's side, but a lot to cover. I just want to say, welcome back to another pod.
Yes, welcome back to another episode of the In Between Overs podcast. We're your host for the day's play. I'm Taran.
And I'm Ishaan.
Yes, South Africa came swinging back. They say if at first you don't succeed, you try again. And literally, they had to chase the same target, maybe 9 or 10 runs more. And this time they pulled it off. And it was a great chase by South Africa. They essentially had an anchor in Aiden Markram. You're talking about Kohli winding back the clock. I think Aiden Markram winded back the clock as well. Really good innings. He's one of those batters that has the potential to be great, but just hasn't capitalized in his time playing for South Africa. But he did today, and it was a fantastic innings. So I think it was 110 that he put up. And his innings coupled with the cameos around him, you had Bretsky with the 50, Devald Brevis. Devald Brevis's innings was the turning point in the match for me because he was able to get South Africa closer to the target. And he's slowly, every time that he comes out to bat, he's reminding me more and more. And I know this has already been said before, and there's been talk about baby AB, but now he's actually batting like him in certain occasions. And he's starting to build that aura is a strong word, but he's starting to build that reputation as a player that can change the momentum of a game, which is what AB de Villiers used to do.
Yeah, he is. And I think you're exactly right. And another word for that in my eyes would be a match winner. He is a match winner for South Africa. He can literally, as you mentioned, if he is able to have even one good over, he's able to capitalize on that. And he's able to literally convert those 20s into momentum swinging 60s or 50s just by the way he's playing and the way he takes on the batters. And you're exactly right. That's what sort of South Africa needed because when he sort of came in, game I would say is still in the balance, but he was really able to take away from Team India. It actually made it very comfortable in the end for some of the lower order South African batsmen.
Yeah, for sure. And then another innings that we have to talk about is Temba Bavuma's innings as well. He was the one who helped lay the platform with Aiden Markram. Temba Bavuma, we said it when we talked about the test series. Every time he comes back into the team and he takes back captaincy, South Africa wins.
It's crazy, and it's actually not funny because it's actually happened quite a few times. Happened in India so far. It's happened in Pakistan as well. And to your point, if the only way South Africa can lose is if Bavuma's not in the squad and he's able to maybe bring those sort of bring that leadership, bring that sort of as you mentioned, that captain's innings. I think a 46 is a pretty good innings. Not like a captain's winning knock, but it's a good sort of stability to have as
Contribution.
yeah, exactly. Great contribution, especially with Quinton de Kock not playing the best. I know he's back in the squad. Maybe not the two best starts, but yeah, you kind of do need your number 3 to come in and really steady the ship, which Bavuma had done.
Another advantage South Africa has is they bat really deep. I think Marco Jansen and Corbin Bosch are super underrated fast bowling all-rounders. Corbin Bosch can bat, and his cameo at the end, 29 or 15 balls, took South Africa over the line at a point where it could have gotten tricky because Tony de Zorzi got injured and he wasn't able to carry on. And so Keshav Maharaj, you're into the tail now. And so it was a lot rested on Corbin Bosch's shoulders, and he was able to pull it off. And we need to talk about India's bowling. Uh, Harshit Rana seemed like he bowled decently well, even though his fingers don't show well. But I think there's one bowler that sticks out to me and sticks out to you too, I'm sure, and that's Prasidh Krishna. He's been off color last 2 games. Even in the first game, he didn't really do the greatest, and in this game, his run rate was just all over the place. His radar was all over the place, and even though he took 2 wickets, an economy of 10 and up is unacceptable.
No, it really is. What you see when you look back at sort of the investments in Prasidh Krishna, he's been part of the squad since as early back as the England tour of, was it 23 or 22? He is that tall bowler that's always been mentioned. He's able to get the extra bounce, that's always been mentioned. But what's also always been mentioned is his inconsistency. You know, he'll have a great IPL or he'll have a great test match, like he did, for example, in England a few times. But he'll also have terrible matches where he could be the difference maker between a win and a loss. And unfortunately, you're right. Today, India was part of the loss, and a lot of it was due to Prasidh Krishna's bowling. It was erratic. He was not accurate, and yeah, as you can mention, it's in the runs. It's in the run category as well.
Yeah, and Arshdeep Singh was pretty effective today. He took 2 wickets, he gave 54 runs. And I think it seemed like the bowling attack as a pack were not able to put pressure. It was harder work for them given the fact it was due as well. And not saying it's sounding like it's excuses, but the due factor does make a difference. At the same time, having said that, these Indian bowlers, they should be used to playing in conditions like this with the due, and they should have some sort of a game plan. It just felt like they weren't able to execute at the level that they could. And they weren't able to do that as a pack. You had individual spells that were decent, um, but don't take away anything from the South African batsmen. They put pressure on. They were scoring boundaries when they needed to, and every batter in the top 6, 7 that came out had a start for South Africa, if not
Yeah,
made a 50. So you got to give them credit.
yeah, no, and then that is why they won, right? They were able to make a at least what it looked like a very competitive total chaseable, right? And to your point, you know, it's a collective effort from the batting lineup of South Africa. But maybe we should focus on India's batting for a little bit. I know I mentioned in the
Yes.
beginning a lot to talk about. Where did you want to start?
So I wanted to start at the end. I felt
Okay.
India were 20 runs short. I think at the way Ruturaj Gaikwad and Kohli, which we will talk about that partnership, but the way they were going, India should have gotten closer to 400. When Ruturaj Gaikwad got out, there were still about 15 overs left. India were already at 257. If you're talking, you're telling me you can't score 130, 140 runs in the last 15 overs with 7 wickets in hand? And India ended up at 357. So that was where I feel South Africa were able to pull the game back. They didn't allow India to a target that could have been more improbable.
I see where you're going at, because definitely it did look like a huge score, especially with the way that Kohli and Rutraj were batting. But it just seemed like India maybe lacked the ability for that firepower. Like, obviously Sundar 1 run, but he only ate 8 balls, right? So he didn't like eat up the strike rate a lot. And then you had Jadeja, who, sure, you know, what was strike rate of 88. That's not that's not too bad. Maybe you expect Jaiswal to be a little bit more of a faster strike rate. I don't know, but I see what you mean though. I think India's capacity for here could have been maybe 400 max.
Jadeja's strike rate was terrible. Let's call a spade a spade. Like when you're coming at number 7 and you're coming to finish the innings, you don't walk out of there with a strike rate of 88. It should have been either the other way around or at least another 10, 15 runs more for the balls that he faced. I felt that was where, not pointing the finger completely at him, but then if you look at Rahul, like KL Rahul was striking really well and he played another good innings. And I'm happy to see him at number 5. But I think it was that number 7 position where if you look at this lineup, we don't really have an out and out finisher. I don't classify Jadeja as an out and out finisher. Washi is still learning his craft and figuring out what his role is in this team. And KL Rahul, well, last game he came at 6, this game he came at 5. I still don't know if he's a finisher, but he has the ability to finish. But we don't have a dedicated finisher, someone like a Hardik Pandya.
But see, and I think you raised such a good point with the term finisher, but because that did raise a thought in my mind. Do you think India's finisher is actually Sundar. With the way he finished some innings in England, he was called a finisher as well. Do you think that expectation is on him, which is part of the reason why he's in the squad?
Maybe that's a role that the management has given. I think the sample size hasn't been big enough for us to
Mhm.
determine that. He's played a couple good innings here and there, so it could be that. But that's what's lacking for now.
Yeah,
Maybe he
yeah.
turns into that, or and then maybe Jadeja gets better at his finishing as well. And then that way that they're able to finish innings better. But we saw that even in the first game. They didn't
Mhm.
finish the innings well. I would argue even in the first game they should have scored more than they ended up at.
No, that's fair, that's fair, and you know what? That's such a good point, but I guess the silver lining of that whole argument is that means your top order is doing pretty well if your problem is finishing. So let's focus on sort of the earlier batsmen. Where do you wanna start there?
Well, we got to start at that big partnership, right? Virat Kohli, Ruturaj Gaikwad, and we can continue singing Virat Kohli's phrases. What is the phrase? Until the cows come home. Is that the phrase?
That's a phrase.
And we do it every time, right? And we've done it for 84 times, right? But I think the century that deserves some praise in this game is Ruturaj Gaikwad. That was well deserved. He's gone through a lot in the past couple of years. He's been through injuries. He was in and out of the team in the last year as well. Struggled through the IPL with injuries and struggled to keep his place in the squads and not getting the opportunities that he needed to get. He gets an opportunity. Both of us were surprised. He was batting at 4 and he gets opportunity again. Second game, scores a ton and shows the world that he's here.
Yeah, very important ton. I like the way how you started that because you're right. We can keep praising Cooley 100%. And apart from his difference in celebrating style, before he's probably a little more aggressive. Now he's just literally just kissing the ring on his necklace or something, right? The real reason we should talk about for today's match is Gaikwad's 100. At least from if we're focusing on India's batting, because it was an exceptional 100. And it was one of those hundreds where you also, at least I did, get a sense of satisfaction because you saw someone's hard work actually bear its fruit. We know his struggle. We've also known his story, right? It was nice. Again, we know this was not ideal for him. He's an opener. He's coming in at 4. But the way that he was batting, the way that he was commanding strike, the way he was pulling the ball, it was incredible, incredible. Punching the ball, it was incredible batting.
That innings was beautiful. Some of his shot selections, his acceleration once he got to 50, I think he was 50 run a ball at the time, and then he just accelerated from 50 to 100, and he got there within 25-ish balls. It was phenomenal to see. I think Kohli, they were neck and neck, and Kohli was ahead at one stage, and then he just took off and he scored his 100 before Kohli, and it was just a phenomenal inning. Some of the pull shots, the jabs. He is technically sound, and I started thinking because I was trying to still understand his selection. And it could be, and this is just my hypothesis, but it could be that they're looking at him as a potential replacement for a Kohli in the future. Shubman Gill's coming back into this lineup, right? I still don't know where Shubman Gill's going to be batting because there's going to be Rohit Sharma's going to be out of the team soon at some point. We don't know when. So there's going to be some spots up for grabs, and I feel Ruturaj Gaikwad has now kept his name in that mix with this ton. And I feel management is thinking of him as taking one of those spots that will come up at either as an opener or one down, depending on where Shubman Gill wants to bat.
Yeah, no, I see what you mean there. He did sort of establish himself again, small sample size, but a ton is a ton. We have to give him that. Uh, I would say I have a little different perspective on that. I think if we look towards the 2027 World Cup, at least if this squad is building up for that moment or that tournament, I would still want to see Rohit Sharma and Kohli play. So to include them in the squad, I think Shubman Gill opens. Because I think Jaiswal just hasn't been able to cement that spot yet, even though this is literally the format for him. And then I think maybe Gaikwad is a replacement for Shreyas Iyer. I think Gautam Gambhir does not like Shreyas Iyer. I think you need sort of that batsman there who's a fully established batsman. I think if Gaikwad is able to cement this role, he could be the Shreyas Iyer replacement.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah, I see that. Like in the interim while Rohit Sharma and Kohli are on the team, yeah, I see that. And I completely forgot about Jaiswal, to be fair. But yeah, so Shubman Gill would slot right into Jaiswal's spot. And yeah, so the point on Gaikwad replacing Shreyas Iyer, yeah, that's interesting. It sucks that Shreyas Iyer is being treated the way he's treated. Like, do we
What did he do
know?
wrong? What did he do wrong?
Yeah, do we know why he got dropped? I don't think it was mentioned, right? It was an injury, was it?
I think he was injured. I think he hurt himself. Oh, he did. He hurt himself when he went for a catch in
Okay,
was it the
okay.
Asia Cup?
In
But again, like
or in
it's
Australia, maybe? Did he
it was
go
in
to Australia?
Australia. He went to Australia. It was in Australia.
Okay.
Yes, yes. It was in Australia. It was actually a pretty bad injury. But no, he was injured. I think God, first of all, Gautam Gambhir has never been a fan of him. And I do think that, hey, at the end of the day, a ton's a ton. If Gaikwad continues his form, it may be hard for Shreyas Iyer to come back.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Let's talk about Kohli a little bit. What's there to talk about?
Okay. I think we can, again, as you said, sing praises of his batting till the cows come home. But I think one little bit of an underrated appreciation for Virat Kohli's batting is his ability to make his other batsmen perform well as well. And I think, two quick things. After the match, Gaikwad actually mentioned it that he actually enjoyed batting with Kohli because Kohli was telling him, hey, look at this field placement. This bowler might bowl this. He was getting tips from Kohli on what to expect from the bowlers. And second, if we look at sort of, some of the, at least the recent batsmen who, in my eyes, been batting with Kohli, a lot of them have been doing well. Shreyas Iyer has done well whenever batting with Kohli, especially look back at the Champions Trophy earlier this year. Exceptional form. And he also mentioned he loved batting with Kohli because it was just everyone was in sync. They were, both fit players. Same thing with Gaikwad and Kohli running. So I think he's able to make his fellow batsmen do well as long as both of them have a decent start.
That's such a great point. Great player can become elite when you make the others around you better. And we see that in every sport, right? They talk about LeBron James, king of basketball, where he does that with whichever team that he plays, he's able to lift everybody else, right? And that's such a great point. And it's awesome that players like Gaikwad and Shreyas are sharing that because that's something that you don't see. You don't see that happen when you watch the game, right? You have to hear it happen. And so to hear that, like, so it speaks volumes of the type of player that Kohli is, where he genuinely wants to help and see other people succeed because he genuinely wants the team to win.
Exactly. And then, it just shows in sort of those partnerships. And unfortunately, of course, they didn't win, which is obviously the number one sort of concern for Team India, for sure. But it's good to see that, there is still a role for experienced players within the squad. And we see it in samples like these.
All right, so series is tied 1-1. We're on to game three, the decider. I'm low-key as a cricket fan happy South Africa won so that we don't have a dead rubber to talk about. Where do you see this series swinging?
Look, I do think India's going to win. I think to your point, this match India had, and unfortunately, just weren't able to capitalize on the positions they had, whether it was batting and getting those extra runs or really just avoiding mistakes from bowling, as well as we didn't mention mistakes in the field as well. Quite a few mistakes from Team India,
What catches drop?
a couple of catches, exactly. So I do think you know, if they're able to fix the mistakes, it should be an India victory. But I do want to see, I'm interested if they'll make any changes. I don't think they should. But again, whenever we talk about lineups, we are 100% wrong.
Maybe we see Shivam Dubey open the bowling. No, I'm joking.
Maybe.
Yeah, I see India pulling it off. I think it'll be a close game. I won't be surprised if South Africa win. I feel India has enough to pull it off. And there could be a change in the lineup, I think, depending on conditions. I don't think they'll drop a player because of performance yet. I feel like they'll give them this entire series, talking about Prasidh Krishna. So I think he will play, and I think he'll bounce back. I think he'll bounce back. These players are international players. They have strong mindsets. They are not going on the field to perform badly. They're trying their best, right? They're giving it their all. And so hopefully it's maybe a mindset shift or maybe it's a technical thing that he needs to address that he'll be able to figure out his length and lines and his plans, execution of his plans. But yeah, here's hoping that India are able to pull off the dub, and I think they'll have to find runs from someone other than Kohli because there's that laws of averages again. I don't know if we're gonna get a lot from him in game 3.
Well, we'll hope so. We'll hope so.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And that's a great place to wrap it up. That stumps for today's play.